Commissioner Kraus,
Here.
Commissioner Matzke.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I'd like to call to order the meeting, the October 15th, 2020 meeting of the Michigan City Civil Service Police Commission. Roll call of members, we've already done that. No election of officers. Approval of minutes.
I guess make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Okay, old business. Do you have anything other than the sergeant's promotion consideration?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Chief, anything old business?
No, I don't have anything.
Chief Cooney?
No, sir.
Okay.
Okay. So the only old business we're going to discuss today then will be the promotions. You guys do not have to wait until the end to comment. We encourage it. Ask questions, whatever you need to do. So we met in a special meeting prior to this and made a determination based on the commission rules that the ranks of sergeant, the 2 open ranks of sergeant, will not be filled at this time. They'll be filled after the next promotional test in November. Is there any questions?
What, I guess obviously what part of the policies and commission rules you guys need on to make that clear?
Okay, so specifically, we ruled that on October 11th, 2018, the members of this department were sent an email, and there's an officer eligibility list for promotional examinations that take place on November 8th, 2018, and specifically you, Kyle, were on the list to take the corporal's test. Now, if you look at section 8.3 or page 8.3 of the rules for the commission, section E, officers eligible to take written examination for promotions are as followed. To take the sergeant's test, you have to be a corporal and have at least 5 years of service on this department. So you did not take a sergeant's test. Even if it was the same test, we do not know. You did not take the test to make the rank of sergeant.
There's a policy, when it talks about the written test itself, it doesn't say you take, it divides up into the first line and second line supervisor's test. So I guess the point that would be argued for me is that there is no distinction on the written test as to whether you're taking a corporal or sergeant's test. It'd be the first line or second line supervisor test.
So the distinction of which test you took was determined by yourself when you got the eligibility list emailed to you and found out you were eligible to take the corporal's test. Regardless if the sergeant's test or corporal's test were the same, when you went into it, you knew you were taking the corporal's test. You were not taking the test for sergeant.
So then, I guess based on what the commission's you're saying then, that it is impossible to be promoted twice in 2 years.
According to these rules and regulations, yes.
Okay. So then, help me understand the process that has led up to this point where there are other officers or corporals that are getting promoted without completing a process, or in my opinion, would be less qualified for that position
So the only person who took the sergeant's test and the only person who was available to fill the next vacant sergeant spot was promoted to sergeant.
Correct, but I took the same time. I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying fundamentally speaking, I took the same exact test as that person, and I did better in the same exact process that they did not even complete.
And we understand that. However, to take the sergeant's test, regardless if the test is the same, the questions and answers are the same, regardless of that, okay, you took a corporal's test and he took a sergeant's test, even if it was the same.
Okay.
Okay.
So, again, I lean back on the fact that when we look at the situation as a whole, and it's now drawn out to almost a year at this point. All right, I'm a corporal. I've been a corporal for over a year. I took the same test as the last corporal just got promoted to sergeant. I went through the whole process. They did not. Now, my sticking point here is obviously that eligibility list is misstated because it's not the eligibility list.
No, the officer's eligible to take the promotional exam and what exam they were eligible to take. When you took that exam, you're only eligible to take the corporal exam. So regardless of whether or not those two exams have identical questions and answers, when you went into it taking it as the corporal's test. You did not go into it taking it as the sergeant's test.
But does the policy define how that list has to be made? Or could the commission just as easily organize it into a first line supervisor?
No, it does. In the same section that I said, 8.3, page 8.3, section E, it says, officers eligible to take written examinations for promotion. Corporal. Officers having served at least 3 years on the department. To take the sergeant test, you have to hold the rank of corporal and have at least 5 years on the department. And like I said, our determination was regardless if those tests are identical, they have the same identical questions and answers, you took a corporal's test. The officer who was promoted to sergeant took the sergeant's test. Currently, no officer on this department has taken a sergeant's test that can fulfill the next two available openings for sergeant.
So even though there is no corporal's test and no sergeant test, that doesn't matter. The tests were administered as a corporal test, a sergeant test, a lieutenant test, a captain test.
We understand they were administered as first line and second line supervisor. However, like I said, you guys, when you took that test in 2018, took the test for the rank of corporal. It doesn't matter if the tests were the same. You went into it after being notified you were eligible to take the corporal's test. You took a corporal's test. You did not take a sergeant's test because you weren't eligible to take the sergeant's test. It is not our fault that they did it as first line supervisor and second line supervisor. You were only eligible to take the corporal's test. And that's what you took. Pardon?
There is no corporal test though.
Well, to test for the rank of corporal, that's what you took. You didn't test for the rank of sergeant.
I think the hard part of why I think we're having a hard part of understanding here is that the part of the policy in which you're quoting, yes, that list was created, but the policy, nowhere in the policy is it dictating how you structure that list. However, there's the eligibility list, correct?
To take the certain tests.
The promotion eligibility list.
Right, but the promotion eligibility is something that's maintained by the commission. That is not the promotion eligibility list.
Well, I understand that. We completely understand that. The email that you got, Kyle, was to tell you that you were eligible to take the corporal's test.
Correct.
To take a sergeant's test, you have to hold the rank of corporal by these rules. To take the sergeant's test, to be considered for promotion for sergeant, you have to take the sergeant's test. And to do that, you have to hold the rank of corporal and have at least 5 years on this department.
I think anybody who looks at these policies, we're going to have a disagreement on its interpretation, and that is your guys' job, and I fully understand that. I think the hardest part for me right now is that when I look at the current climate of this department and the current climate of people that are being promoted and put into leadership roles, it's problematic. If you guys were to promote the next two spots with me and Corporal Henderson, who would have a problem with that? There's no one left to contest that issue, and there's no one there to disappoint, there's no one there to fight that. But yet, me and Corporal Henderson have been here every meeting for the last year, laying down articulable points as to where the policy can support that decision. But along the entire way, all it's been is whether it's the old commission saying it's not fair to other people, or whether it's just people nitpicking ways in the policy to decide what the policy doesn't say versus what it says. Because all over that policy, there's ways to support why you guys could promote this. But the fact of the matter is, over this whole process, it's just been, let's figure out what decision needs to be made so that we don't promote a corporal or an officer to a sergeant within the same 2 years. That's what it's been about.
Well,
So how do you, okay, you read the policy, right?
Correct. Many times.
Okay.
Many times.
And as have I.
Right.
In there, what does it say how the promotion eligibility list is put together? What does it say?
The promotion eligibility list is based off of, reconfigured after every past performance period. So the idea.
I didn't ask, how is it put together?
By the commission? I'm not understanding your question. If you're referring
It's a simple question, Kyle. Just listen to the question. I'm not trying to be condescending.
Mm-hmm.
You said you read the policy. It's lists in there. It is put together based on your written examination, 35%. Oral interview, if you pass the written, 35%. Past performance, 20%, updated every 6 months, as you said. Longevity, 10 points max. Right? That's what it says. That's how it's put together.
Okay.
You stated earlier, it's not put together. That's how it's put together. And the commission puts it together.
Right.
There's an eligibility list for each rank. Each rank. Corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, captain. We agree on that, correct?
I've never seen it, yes.
Well, it's in there.
The policy dictates that, yes.
Yes, it does dictate that. Once you are on one eligibility list per test, that's what you're on, per test, that's in there also. You were on the eligibility, huh?
Where's that at in policy that you're only on one eligibility list? Because the only thing I read is it updates every past performance.
Well, it does say that, but it also says,
So once the past performance period comes, that list should be updated, correct?
that's
So your past performance.
yeah,
It does
like
not-
we did last time, correct, yes.
Yeah,
Once,
well-
once the past performance is due, like the
So
past
when the
one.
past performance is due and the vacancy was available at that.
no, it doesn't say that, Willie. It says you're on one eligibility list per test,
Where does it say that?
right in here. Page 8. Is it 8.3 here?
I've never read it.
It's 8.3 or 8.2 right here. It says, well, the eligibility list, that's how they're put together. We agree on how they're put together, right?
Correct. So you guys just inform us on, like, could you recite that where it says that you're on one eligibility list per test? Because I've never read that.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Talking about? Okay. It says a list will be posted by the commission listing the officers that are eligible for each rank prior to the test and a location where all officers of the department have access.
That doesn't say.
That's not the one?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I do that several times, and nowhere have I ever read that you're on one list per test.
Well, the eligibility lists are drawn up by rank. You can't, and since you're taking the test for the rank of corporal, you're on the eligibility list for corporal.
Correct, but the policy.
Now, are you gonna let me finish, Willie, or are you gonna keep interrupting? You asked the question, I'm trying to answer the question. You want an answer or not?
Go ahead.
Hey, if you wanna keep talking, go ahead, and I'll wait till you're done with your question or comments. I'll wait, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I asked the question that be provided where it reads that, and you guys have failed to do that. No one's.
I failed to do that. I just explained you're on one. You took the rank, the test for the rank of corporal, correct? That's the way you did because that's what's on the list here. So you took that test. Even though it's the same test as President Maskey has explained to you. Once you are promoted to a rank, I do believe before you can be put on another eligibility list, I think you have to take another test.
And that's what you think, right? I mean, that's what I'm asking.
That's what I'm interpreting the rules to say, yes, that's what I interpret. The attorney's read through it, he can answer, he interprets it that way or not, but he was here when we discussed whether he would be eligible for the rank of sergeant.
Correct.
Or eligible to be on the list for the rank of sergeant, I'm sorry.
So just to, again, just so I'm clear, and I think I hear what you're saying.
But I don't really like the way these rules are written, but we have to enforce them.
And I agree, and I think that there's no one in this room would disagree that this is a faulty policy, and in the scope of that, in these times that we're in, with the amount of attrition that we've experienced in this department and the vacuum that's created as a result, has created an environment where there are a lot of unprecedented things happening, okay, and that have happened, whether that's the promotion, regardless of the policy and what it says or doesn't say, there's been many promotions now that are unprecedented. And I think that when we're looking at these unprecedented times and the choice to hold these ranks when we're faced with the reality that there's two people that have taken the same completed the same process as anybody who's been promoted to sergeant. I've kind of conducted that same process as Sergeant Rodriguez, as Sergeant Painter. I went through the same exact process, whether that be the written, the oral, any part of that. We've all went through the same exact process. And to me, I think that while the commission, you are leaning on and leaning on the fact that at the time of the written test, now almost 2 years ago, I was a patrolman testing for corporal. You're in these unprecedented times, and I think that there's a valid argument to be made for saying why I'm qualified for this position. I'm arguably more qualified than corporals at the time of the test making that jump to sergeant. Because I've completed the same process. I understand what the policy says, but this has been the crux of kind of the arguments that we've been making for the last year, is that the policy could support it just as much, you guys promoting us. And when you look at, and again, that's maybe my interpretation or whatnot because of the subjectivity associated to the generating of the list that you provided to Corporal Henderson. But again, you are in unprecedented times. There's a lack of qualified applicants for this position. So I come to you again, we come to you again saying, we have completed the same process. Why are we not qualified? Is it because of a line on that policy? Or what is it? Because I've taken the same test, and that's what the frustrating part is.
Can
I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll address what you're saying. You're talking about unprecedented times. I want to make it clear that at no point in time during our special meeting or any discussions we've had about these promotions have we ever factored in manpower issues. Well, you're saying unprecedented times and people leaving by attrition, so I'm going to touch on that. If we based it on that, that would be even more reason not to make those ranks. Because what you do is you promote 2 sergeants, and then you have to make 2 corporal positions and promote those as well, which takes 2 patrolmen off the street, which leaves less people out there patrolling. So if we want to look at it from that point, that's my standpoint on that. But we've never made that a consideration. I'm just touching on what you said. There'd be less officers on the street if we made the 2 promotions right now.
Because right now we have supervisors working districts.
Well, I understand there's ways to cover that, Kyle. Believe me, I do. I totally do.
I'm not saying that you make the decision solely based on the present time. What I'm saying is that if you have an applicant who has completed the same process as a current sergeant did at the time of the test was issued, and now you're looking at somebody like myself who has completed that process and did well in that same process, the policy will support you guys making a decision you could make that argument and that valid argument and an articulable argument of why you could promote us in this situation.
And we can make one why we can't promote you.
I understand, and again, that's
because okay, if we made the promotions for you gentlemen, then everybody around here who thought they were taking only 1 test and could have went from corporal to sergeant and then right away because of unprecedented times been lieutenant is going to come at us too. Or took a sergeant's test and then took the lieutenant's test and then a captain's position opened up, they're going to come after us too. So to answer your question about are we falling back on this line of the rules and regulations, absolutely, because that's what governs us. That's what we have to follow.
Right.
Okay? This is not a personal opinion here at all. Okay? This is us reading the rules and regulations, going by past precedents, which is almost 30 years that I know of, there's never been an officer who's been promoted twice off of the same test. And what these rules and regulations tell us, and the fact that you went in taking that test knowing you were taking a test for a corporal spot, because that's all you were eligible to take at the time, according to this. Okay, we have to follow this. This is not, believe me, I understand the situation you're in. I'd probably be arguing just as much as you are if I was on the other side of this table. But we have to follow these rules and regulations, Kyle. We have to go by the recommendation of our council, okay? That's what we're doing. That's all we're doing. I understand. I fully understand how you guys feel, but we have to go by this.
I got a couple things that, if you're going by that, like I asked a minute ago, you said this eligibility list. You're on.
Okay, so you're addressing what Bruce said, and he was mistaken. He could not find that in there, okay? It was a mistake that he said that. All I'm telling you is what we're going off of is you gentlemen knew taking the test that you were taking a corporal's test. It doesn't
I
matter.
was taking the first.
No, you got an email saying you were eligible to take the corporal's test prior to the test being administered. That's the email you got telling you you were eligible to take the corporal's test. It didn't say you were eligible to take the sergeant's test because according to these rules, you were not. You did not test for sergeant. You will not be promoted to sergeant.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. We didn't take a corporal's test, though, just so we be clear on that. The eligibility list updates every past performance.
Right. You are not on the eligibility list that we put out as a commission. You were not on that list for sergeant. There's only one officer on that list who took the sergeant's test, left to fulfill that open sergeant spot, and that gentleman was promoted.
Correct. And then just going back to what you said a minute ago about past practice, nobody's ever been promoted twice off one test, correct?
Right.
Nobody else is, and in the history of this department either, has been promoted without completing the oral interview process either. We have supervisors that got promoted to supervisors that weren't.
Willie, back up. They just started this.
I'm talking about since the oral interview's been in place. There's been nobody promoted that did not complete the oral interview.
Do you know why that is?
Because everybody that's been promoted has scored a 70 or better on the written exam.
Right.
So past practice, in my opinion, says you have to complete the oral process to be promoted.
No, it does not.
That's what past practice would show. Everybody that's been promoted during this oral interview process system has completed that, they got promoted prior to current.
Well, and the reason for that is because when you throw in the oral interview as 35% of your total score, there's no way that anybody who never took the oral interview could pass you. It's mathematically impossible. If somebody scored 69 on that test and you scored 70, did you score that much better? Are you that better at that than that officer? No, you're not. So you go in and answer a couple questions and talk to a guy for a few minutes. You get your oral interview in, that's 35% of your score. Mathematically, if that person scored 100 on their past performance, 100 on their written exam, and maxed out on their longevity, they still couldn't beat you.
Well, they could, because if they scored 100, they'd have done the oral interview.
What's that?
Okay,
if they scored 69 and didn't take it, then they couldn't beat you.
And I'm not arguing that, I'm bringing up the point where you say that it's past practice. And
well, we have to go by past precedents. Okay? We have to go by past precedents. If we don't, that puts us in a trick bag. It's the same job that you do is follows past precedents every single day.
Sure. And I mean, I see that we're really not getting too much traction anymore with this, but I do have one question. And so the last meeting, we were informed by the commission, who advised that they consulted with their council.
And that we would consider you guys for the promotion.
No, we said we would consider what you said.
We said you guys would be considered for the sergeant spot.
Yeah.
We would take it into consideration. He's read this inside and out, our council. He sat down with us today. We discussed it over and over. We've had discussions with the administration as well about this. Okay? And the rules are the rules. He wants me to come.
So in chapter 8, section 8, D, there is language that kind of wraps all this together. Says that the promotion eligibility list shall be in effect until a new written and oral test is taking place. So by interpreting that rule, that essentially says when that testing period was up in November of 2018, the lists that were compiled for promotions then were the lists until this next testing period. They can't be changed. The only thing that changes on them would be the past performance, because that's updated every 6 months. So the promotion eligibility list that's formed after the testing period is the eligibility period until the next test. It doesn't change, other than past performance. The people on it aren't going to change until they're promoted. Then they're just taken off. They're not added to another list. They're just taken off. So by reading these rules and interpreting them as they are, and we all agree they need some editing, these lists are what they are for 2 years. So as Kyle brought up earlier about it's impossible to be promoted within a 2-year period twice. It's not. For instance, if you were promoted before the testing period, you take that new test, you're on the eligibility list. 6 months after your probation period, you can be promoted again. Again, that's a different situation, but it is possible to be promoted twice. But you would have to be on that eligibility list, which doesn't change for 2 years. That's the way that it's been interpreted. Obviously, there's some public policy behind that, is you don't want people running through ranks quick just because there's vacancies. You want them to have time with that rank, but that's something that we're stuck with the rules that are given to us. That's something that we're going to have to talk and revise and whatever they want to do.
On this for the testing.
We'll have to vote on that and see what we can change, but we're also stuck in a period where nothing can change without a 30-day buffer. So if we were to make a decision today, or the commission, were to make a decision today that would affect your promotions, there's not enough time before the next exam. There just isn't. You have to have a 30-day window. And we're just stuck based on what these rules and guidelines say now.
I don't think that, and as Commissioner Maskey said, and same thing for Commissioner Kraus, none of this is personal between us and you guys, because you guys are in a position that we fully understand is not comfortable, that it came thrusted on you guys and you've had to make hard decisions. But I think that's important for the commission to understand and realize that you have 2 corporals that are completely dedicated to not only this department, but to what the mission is of this department. And when we see people getting quickly promoted, that I can tell you that we are more qualified than the other individuals being promoted at the time, it's extremely frustrating. Because then you see leadership issues come into effect, and it's just an overall health of this department. It is troublesome to see this decision being made in the manner that it is. And we will never agree, and in that respect, because we're here to just voice that, and we're not going to obviously change anybody's mind in the situation. And the way that we interpret the policy, unfortunately, is not the end all be all. So, again, appreciate everything you guys have done up to this point and the hardships you went through to get through all this stuff, but it's still going to be unsatisfactory for us no matter what, and I think that's just going to be a reality that we're going to have to deal with. In fact, it's been a reality we've dealt with since the last commission, so it's not like we're not used to being disappointed like now at this time, but it's not you guys, but
Well, I'd like to say real quick that you saw in the last month that we righted a wrong. We found a wrong, we righted the wrong. I don't know if that's one of the promotions that you're talking about, but with the corporal promotion, we righted that wrong because we discovered it. I hope that shows you guys that we're trying to do what's right and what's fair. Right now, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. We have to follow this, even though we understand your situation, even though I feel for you guys, I really do. And I'd be in the same spot if I was in that position that you are, and I'd be asking the same questions. I guarantee it. But this is what we have to follow, and that's all we can do right now.
And if I could say something, I agree. It's nothing personal, Willie, Kyle. Nothing personal at all. In fact, you guys probably are more qualified than a lot. I wouldn't disagree with you there. I wouldn't disagree with you that you're hardworking. Do you work harder than other people? That's a personal, that's something that everybody has to decide. I know there's a lot of hardworking individuals on this department. Some don't have rank for whatever reason. Is it fair? I don't know if it's fair or not. But in Willie, you're right, it does not specifically say that you come off an eligibility list, but it's page 8-5, the promotion eligibility list, section 8A says, as I read to you before and Chuck followed up with, the promotion eligibility list shall consist of a separate section for each rank. And each section, each rank's got their eligibility list, and you're on only one at a time. And once you are in that promotion eligibility list, as Chuck read, is in effect the one you're on, which is only one at a time per testing period until a new written and oral test has taken place. So I misspoke. You were correct. It doesn't say that in so many words, but when you take the two sections A and D, it basically tells you can only be on one eligibility list per test period. But it is, you are correct, it is updated every past performance period. So once again, it doesn't say that specifically, but the two sections combined describe what happens. So, Jim, do you have something?
I just have a general overall kind of statement on this thing that's happened over the last 2 years. And I guess I just want you to hear me out.
Go ahead.
For 26 years, I've probably taken 10 promotional tests. And I worked very hard at every one of the tests that I took. In fact, every one of the tests, I knew if I didn't achieve a score of 70 in every test, I was not getting promoted. What I've seen happen over the past 2 years is that we have people that are bragging that I only got a 50-something and I got promoted. And why I'm bringing this up to you is because I want to see you fix it. Because I think it is a bad situation. It puts the professionalism of the department in a bad place that we are promoting people that did not get a 70. And even further, did not get a 65, which is the minimum score to be considered a first-class performer. Then they don't even go and take the oral examination. So when we look at the big picture, we potentially promote someone that didn't get a 70. In fact, could even get a 20, I suppose. That's the precedent we've set. We've set during what's happening. Didn't sit in front of a panel and show whether they're an effective communicator or not. Would make effective supervisory answers or formulate answers that could harm people, not only in the community, but the people that they serve. It's absolutely outlandish. You brought up 30 years of things that have happened in the past, over the past 30 years, and this has never happened. What also has never happened until the past two commissions is that someone got promoted that got a 58. So just please consider that when you're writing the rules, because people can get mad at me for saying that, but when you go and take a test and you don't pass it, you should not get promoted. And that's happened a lot. And in fact, that's probably what upsets these guys the most, is that they did get a passing score. And a lot of people got promoted that didn't. And it bugs me because I worked so hard at every exam that I took to make sure that I got a 70. Now, if I didn't get a 70, I would never have expected to get promoted.
Hey Tim, let me ask you a question real quick. When you were promoted to corporal, who did your oral interview?
We didn't do them.
But you said without it, how do you prove that you're going to be an effective supervisor? They did it back then without having the oral interview. It only is concerning you now because of the two gentlemen sitting here.
My argument with that would be that they never promoted anybody that got 58. And I think that's a good thing that the changes were made. Because we've shown that we can evolve as a commission, as a police department. These are good. Doing more of these options might give us better success.
And we totally agree with you. Honestly, we totally agree with you that there are some things that need to be fixed and changed. And we've discussed that with the administration amongst ourselves. And believe me, they're going to solicit input from the officers on this department now on how things can change or should change and some wording and stuff like that. We've already spoken about that. And our feeling is some things need to be clarified on here. We're going to ask for your input, their input, and we'll give our input as well.
Don't take it what I said.
Oh, I'm completely, I'm not.
Think about those things, please, when you rewrite the rules, is what I'm asking.
And just to add to what you said, Tim, when I took this job from John Felicity decided to resign, I'll be honest with you, did not know that you did not have to pass the test to get promoted until I read these rules and regs. I thought you had to pass the test 70 or above to get promoted. Of course, that's from the Stone Ages, from another time when I was here, but so I was somewhat shocked, and we'll have to look, like you said, have to look at that as far as you have to pass the test to get promoted. And this doesn't just affect you two gentlemen, as you know, because if in fact you had been promoted to sergeant, then there would have been 2 corporal promotions. But since we can't promote you, or in your eyes, we won't promote you to sergeant, that means 2 people won't get promoted to corporal, so that affects 2 more people in the department. So it's not just you guys who we were trying to think of and go by these rules and regs, it's the people, the corporals that would have come up and been eligible to take the sergeant's test like you would have been eligible for the lieutenants.
And I think that's part of the reason it's so hard to swallow for Coach Sparsky and I, is that it's by us not being promoted, it potentially causes disheartening feeling or grievance among 4 different people for sure. The 2 sergeants and the 2 patrolmen that would be corporal. And that's based on the interpretation of the policies, because it's clearly unclear. We've all said that it's very, very poorly written. However, if those promotions are made, there's nobody to grieve anything. There's no other sergeant corporals that are eligible that took the test to become sergeant. There's the patrolman that took the test that didn't score 70. Obviously, the composite scores there, the 2 highest will get promoted, so nobody under them can grieve anything. There's no disheartening feeling there. So that's what's hard to swallow, I think, in my opinion personally, is that the rules are very unclear. It can go either way, probably, but it's still the choice is being made to not promote, and then it's causing an uneasy feeling amongst 4 officers that work here, where the vice versa, if the promotions are made, everybody's happy, there's nobody to grieve anything, there's nobody that's missing out on something. And again, it's not personal, but it's hard to swallow at the same time.
Could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and this is just from my personal opinion, FYI. So do you think that if you 2 got promoted to the rank of sergeant, which would be 2 promotions off of 1 test, not 2 separate tests, 1 test, that there wouldn't be hard feelings among certain individuals in this department? You think that would be just okay with everybody that you 2 got promoted twice of 1 test?
I mean, people may not like it, but the policy...
No, I didn't. I just, because you had said there'd be nobody to grieve it, so I was...
I mean, there would be nobody. Nobody's missing out.
No, I'm not talking about grieving. I'm talking, do you think they would agree with that? I guess that was the best way to phrase it. Do you think...
Some people may not agree with it.
Okay.
People don't agree with it.
Okay.
I'm talking about the actual grievance portion. There's nobody that's not being given an opportunity that they could have by us getting that. There's nobody there. There's nobody left. The only other corporal that's even on this department didn't even take the exam.
Right.
So that's, like I said, that's what's hard to swallow for on my aspect. I think probably Corporal Sparsky as well, probably the 2 patrolmen that would be promoted to corporal as well, because they're not given the same opportunities other patrolmen are that took the test, did not score high enough, and got promoted. And there's other people that are missing that opportunity. Even though, all in all, I don't think that's right, but nonetheless, they're not getting the same opportunities as other people.
For me personally, once again, this wasn't a personal decision because it doesn't affect me or Scott or Chuck, our attorney, in any way, shape, or form.
Sure.
And I apologize for the fact that these rules are written in such a lousy way.
But I mean,
we have to go with what...
That you guys at least are applying something from the rules. You're interpreting however you interpret, but...
And I'm sorry it took so long.
Because prior to that, we were just told that personal opinion is not fair by other commissioners, so I can definitely swallow you guys' answer better than others.
Well, I apologize that it took so long. I'm not sure when you started this process. Was it February or January? Kyle, Willie, when did you first approach?
It's been about that, probably somewhere around there.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry it took us so long to get to it also. And we wanted to give you an answer before the test, because that would only be fair. I guess there's a section in here which I guess we could have gone to the technically speaking, come to a decision. And I don't think any of three of us were comfortable with that. But I'm not sure, it took me the third time reading through these rules to find this, but I'll just read the section we could have referred to, which would have been sort of chicken shit, and I'll use that terminology on TV.
Can't say it on TV, sir.
I just did.
Okay.
Okay. Miscellaneous. Promotion appointments shall be governed by the rules and regulations in effect 30 days prior to the date the vacancy occurred. Now, if we would have used that section of this policy, you do know that 2 sergeants' availability would have been Sergeant Williams retired on August the 20th, so July 21st would have been the date the rules were in effect. Sergeant McClintock retired on September 7th. That would have been August the 7th. So that would have been under the old commission's rules and regulations, and you know what their policy was on that.
Well, sure, I mean, I understand that too, but at the same time.
So that would have been,
policies,
that would have been a chicken crap way of doing it. So we tried to explain it the best we could, and that sort of sucked too, but.
I do want you guys to understand, besides you, we had to take some other situations, the same situations into account. Like, one that was brought up to us when we started talking about all this was somebody that was corporal, took the sergeant exam, but didn't take the lieutenant's exam. And she, technically, probably could have been promoted to lieutenant when one of those spots opened up not too long ago. But she didn't get that spot.
Correct.
So we would have had to go back and revisit that, and then revisit more, and at what point does it end?
I mean, but that's a big difference because there's a first line test and a second line test. The lieutenant's a second line supervisor. So you clearly were taking a first line supervisor test in that aspect.
I agree, but when you took the test, you took it knowing that it was for the corporal spot. Did you not? I mean, when you got the email before the first test saying what test you were eligible to take, what test did you think you were taking?
A first line supervisor test.
No. The email, Willie, honestly, I'll just say it again. The email says, and your name is on the list, that you're eligible for the corporal's test. Mm-hmm. Okay. The rules and regulations for the commission say what? They say that you have to be a corporal to take the sergeant's test. Correct?
The rules say that?
Our rules and regulations say you have to be a corporal to take the sergeant's test, correct? Okay. So, you weren't a corporal when you took the test, correct?
Correct.
So, you didn't take the sergeant's test.
And we understand that. The only argument is that the test changed since those policies were in effect. There is no corporal sergeant test. There's a first line test, second line test. So that's what's right. Understandable. Right. Is because the test changed since those were written, so those don't even apply to the types of tests we're currently taking.
And you know what? We had a problem with that as well, and guess what? That's not the test they're going to be offered next time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on now. Applicants in process, we don't have anything right now. Probationary officer reports, you guys have those?
Briefly, the FTO meeting was canceled prior to, however, just go through a few things. Let's see. Ballin, Kolarczyk, Mans, and Moda are all graduating from the academy on November 13th. They're on schedule to do so. They will go to phase 4 of the FTO program when they return November 16th. Scott, Paul, Sanchez, Slayer will all attend the academy coming up at the end of November. They'll have 2 weeks of distance learning with the training division, and then they will go off. Alexander and Williams are in phase 1 of the FTO program after completing their administrative training with Sergeant Rodriguez and Corporal King. They will go to phase 2 of the FTO program on about the first week in November, depending on the days up.
Okay. We'll move on to new business. We have no new correspondences that need to be brought up in here. No claims to be paid. Chief, you have a report?
I guess, first of all, I'd just like to say I'm appreciative of the conversation that took place, and I think it's indicative of what we're going to see going forward. It is very true that we have a lot of challenges that we are going to face, but I think the ability to remove emotionalism and make decisions based upon principles is imperative. I commend the officers for standing their ground and pushing forward what they did, because I think their interests are for the betterment of this department. I think the decisions that you made is also for the betterment of this department to make a decision based upon policy, period. And I'm very appreciative of that. Our department is facing many challenges, and we embrace that. We're in some very difficult situations, but we are not going to run from those situations. And I will tell you unequivocally that we are determined to make this a great place to work at and a great place to be a part of. We've got a journey that we're going to go on, but we're not going to run from the challenges at all. We're going to take them head on, and I'm confident that in the future, this is going to be a place where people can be proud of and really desire to be a part of what we're building here. Just a couple things. Very appreciative of the department for the activity on the streets. As all of us know, there has been an uptick in guns on the streets, and our specialty units as well as the officers on the streets have done a tremendous job in getting some of these guns out of the streets. So I'm just very, very happy about those things taking place. Also, our animal control is slowly being integrated into the training part of what we're doing. They had never really been trained before, and yesterday they took part in a taser training, and we're trying to get that field more professionalized and under our canopy for what we're doing. In the last week of this month, all the chiefs will be going through official chiefs training, and that's the training that you're supposed to take immediately upon being appointed chief, and we've never been afforded that opportunity because of COVID, and we are looking forward to diving into that aspect of it and getting a greater understanding. All three chiefs did a self-initiated leadership training on a national level, because we understand that in order to further this department and get to where we need to be, that we have to keep improving as leaders. And so we took it upon ourselves to dive into a leadership training on a national level, which is just going to benefit us even more and more. And long term, we plan on taking our supervisors and others in this leadership and training them, because we know that it will have a direct impact upon the officers that are underneath our command. And once this culture gets to where we need it to be, we know that there's going to be an impact upon the community, and that's the way to do it. It's interesting, we have two dynamics going on at the same time that we have to be very mindful of. Number one is the culture of what's going on inside of this department, the mental health of this department with all the changes that are going on in this world, and that's been our primary focus. But we're also looking at the community aspect and how we engage with them. Fortunately for us, for what we have seen on a national scale has not impacted Michigan City. I think that the community on the whole has a lot of confidence in what they're saying within this department on how our officers interact with them on a daily basis, and I think that that's a plus, especially coming into this next election season. But overall, I just want to assure you guys that we're going to do everything in our power. We're not afraid of these challenges that we're facing, and we're going to push this department forward.
Just a couple things. There are a few anniversary dates that I think people should be made aware of. On October 11th of this year, Officer Jason Costigan, Corporal Steve Forker, and Sergeant Rodriguez have successfully completed 15 years with the department. And then also coming up next Friday on October 23rd, Corporal Corley will have 20 years with the department. They'll be provided letters as well as service pins, and we want to congratulate them on their time here. Also, I would like to, I know I've spoken with Commissioner Kraus about this as well. At either the next commission meeting or maybe a special meeting, we would like to have the people who have been promoted since COVID began, which would have started with Corporal Overly, have a special meeting where their family can come here and kind of congratulate them again on being promoted to either sergeant or corporal at the time. We didn't really get a chance to do that with the limitations on people being here, so I would recommend that if we can schedule that in.
I agree.
Either the next meeting or at another time.
Okay.
Other than the probationary officer's report, I don't have anything else.
All right. So Cisco's not here. We'll have that. You got any comments you want to make, Bruce?
I just said we're looking at the testing date. It's November 14th. Good for you, applicant testing?
Applicant testing, yeah.
And we're looking at Chief, Saturday, November 14th, possible applicant testing date. We got about, I think, 50 applications from that they were going to take the applicant test in, I think, March, and then because of COVID, it was canceled. So we're going to reach out to each of those individuals plus solicit more applications.
Is there a date by when you want the applications in? Has that already passed, or are you going to extend the date?
No, we'll extend that. Like I said, I think we're looking at, we are looking at November 14th for the testing day, which is a Saturday.
So they can get their application in?
Right, and I think Sergeant Rodriguez is going to get on social media, the papers, etc.
Okay.
Give the date. I think, was it 10 days prior to, or maybe a week prior to, we like to get all the applications in. I think that's what.
Usually about a week prior.
Yeah. So then we'll finalize the date and time. Usually it's 8 or 9 we start the testing, the written test. I think that's what we usually do.
Yeah. It goes 9 a.m.
Yeah, we'll finalize that and get it out to everybody. So if you're interested, send us an application. Go online, right? mcpd.com.
Chuck, do you have any comments?
Nothing from me, no.
Okay. FOP representatives make comment? No. City Council liaison, Mr. Simmons is not here. Any comments from the public? No.
Questions, comments?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? All right, next scheduled meeting will be Wednesday, November 11th, 2020 at 11 a.m. in this room.